And to tell us more about the European Union's work in Uganda, we have the Ambassador Attilio Pachipichi, the head of the European Union delegation in Uganda. Your Excellency, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning.
It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for hosting me.
Well, fast forward, I have just said, tell us more about the European Day in this time of COVID-19.
Well, actually, it is, for us, it's a very important day, but it's also a very sad day.
Oh,
you know, let's remember that nearly 60,000 people have lost their lives all over the world, and 150,000 in Europe alone. So it is a celebration. It is a celebration of an important day for us, but it's also a moment when we should remember what is going through, what is happening in this world, the crisis which is affecting us all, in Europe, in Uganda, in America, in Asia, everywhere. So this is the most important point. So it's impossible really to celebrate the Europe Day the way we usually do it, in a joyful way, you know, organizing events attended in the past years, attended by so many people who enjoyed friendship and good relations, which have been our landmark for the last 45 years. That is impossible this year. And I look forward to hear from the Minister of Health when it will be possible again, hopefully soon, at some point in time soon, to come again and enjoy our own each other company and have the opportunity to discuss again the way we used to do. We have been doing for so many years. Maybe the next the celebration of the Africa Union European Union Summit in October maybe can provide the opportunity to celebrate against our friendship. I look forward to that. But now, I think I will stay home with my wife, who has been inspiring my life and my work, and then call my brother.
Via Zoom.
Yes, that is what we can do.
Okay. As one of the major partners, what measures do you have in combating COVID-19 economic challenges like inflation, inadequate cash flow, to mention but a few, and to development partners like you, bearing in mind that the European countries have their own problems currently, yet they have projects they support back here?
I think you made a very important point. It is definitely the moment, and Europe at the beginning focused on its own problems. That is what we have been doing immediately as immediate reaction to this terrible crisis which is affecting us all. Now we are seeing some good results. And even before achieving these results, we've been sitting together, all European Union member states and the European Union institutions, including our financial institutions such as the European Investment Bank, to see how we could help our partners, our neighbors, our partners, traditional partners in Africa, all over the world. And so we came under the so-called banner of Team Europe, and we have identified a number of actions to implement all over the world, in Africa particularly. In Uganda, what we have done, I mean, at the end, it's important to say we are at the end of a cooperation cycle. In fact, we were about to finalize the strategy to carry forward the cooperation which we have been having and the good relations for the past 45 years when this crisis hit us. So we will have to reconsider a little bit with the government what we wanted to do, what we were about to put on paper as next steps of our cooperation because of this virus. But in any case, what we have done, we have tried to reorient the ongoing projects. Just 2 days ago, I signed, so to speak, a check, a transfer of 16 million euros, and then another transfer of $10 million will be signed in few days, and this is money which is going to the Treasury to help Uganda to have more liquidity in order to address this crisis, the consequences of the crisis and the crisis itself. It is money allocated to the jail sector, it is money allocated to the centralization, but it is money which is flowing to the Treasury, so the government can use it the way it wants. There is a balance, there is an amount which we are going to direct specifically to the Ministry of Health, 4 million euros. So this is a work in progress. In a matter of few days, I should be able to sign an amendment of this budget support program in order to be able to direct this money to the Ministry of Health. So support to the government first and foremost, because this is what we do. We cooperate with the government. Many believe, oh, we are here to support civil society alone. It's not true, not at all.
It's
our focus is working with the government, following the priority of the government, working in line with the vision the government has. This is what we do everywhere in the world, in Uganda as well. So first, to support the government in its efforts to deal with any issues, and in this case, the priority, of course, is to address the COVID-19 emergency crisis. So that is what we are doing. A total of 30 million euro will be soon be completed disbursement. Then we have managed to find, again, scratching here, there are 2 million euros, which I would like to allocate to give a chance to the civil society to cooperate with the efforts of the government to address these coronavirus issues and problems. But this has to be discussed with the line ministry to see whether this is acceptable, in which terms, and if it is, we will go ahead. If it is not, we will do something else. That is, again, to deal with the immediate impact of the COVID, of the virus. And then there is the private sector. You remember, just before this crisis, we organized, after 1 year of hard, intense work, a big conference, a forum. It was in Mugnogno, between European companies, private sector, who have invested already in Uganda, and those who are willing to invest, and the Ugandan companies. It was a very successful forum, attended by the president, and I'm co-chairing actually a board made by European companies and Ugandan companies, made by European diplomats and African line ministries. And my co-chair is actually Dr. Elika Rwanga. In this board, with this board, we want to take forward the decisions, the ideas, the vision we developed in this forum. So we cannot forget, and we will not forget, the importance of the private sector. And I'm working with my team to identify financial instruments and packages to help the private sector, because that is the driving force of this country. Absolutely. We know there are businesses, key business. Look at the tourism sector. 1.5, 1.6, maybe $2 billion generated of revenue every year. And there are these investments which are, empty. Nobody's there. They are losing money, these investments, these investors.
Is there a strategy European Union is going to come up with in regards to helping, especially the tourism and the hospitality?
Absolutely. That is what we are working together with my team and with the private sector of Uganda. We want to contribute to give a chance to these companies to go through this crisis without losing the investments they have made, without allowing this infrastructure to deteriorate, so that they will be ready as soon as the normal world we know and the normal life we have been leading comes back, and they will be ready to restart and to contribute again to the economy of this country. So we are looking at that. There is one last point. There are assets, since we mentioned tourism. The assets of these countries are culture, wildlife, the beauty of this environment. That has to be protected as well. You don't want to have rhinos bred in Ziwa farm being poached. You don't want to have elephants being killed in national parks, because that is why people are coming here and are spending billions of dollars. So we want to have a look at that as well, and we have created a new instrument which will allow those companies working in that sector also to get some little support. That is what we are trying to do. It's not enough, to my view, because never is enough.
Oh, yes.
I want always to get more, but that is what we do.
Well, we appreciate you for the efforts you're already doing. But how is the pandemic affecting EU, knowing that countries like Italy, Spain, are mounting cases there by the seemingly sound as the peak of Europe's COVID-19 crisis?
No, I mentioned earlier, it's a disaster. Nearly 150,000 people have died in Europe, and I mean the broad Europe. I'm not just talking about the European Union member states, all together, including Russia, including all the Europe as we know. 150,000. This is a huge number of people who died, and my deepest heartfelt condolences must go to the families of these people. It's not fair. Many say, but they are old people. No, it's not true. Some of them are old people, yes, and then why should I have my father dying, passing away for this terrible disease? It's awful. So yes, the situation has been terrible. It is getting better. It is getting better because some measures, traditional measures, isolation, the kind of things that the government of Uganda has done very, very quickly, swiftly, efficiently, properly. Maybe you want to raise the issue later on, so I don't want to discuss about it immediately. But that is what we are doing in Europe. There is no other way, because there is no treatment. there is not vaccine yet. And that is the area where we are working really, really hard together, all over the world. This is what we are doing.
Find a vaccine.
Absolutely. That is the only way forward. Otherwise, the life you know, the life I know, and the life we have been leading will never be back again.
Absolutely. So what does it mean in terms of relationship among countries in Europe and Africa? Recently, UK left the European Union. Are we looking at a change post-COVID-19?
Well, the only point which I really want to underline is isolation doesn't help. Of course, the immediate reaction of everybody is, I have to take care of my own problem and I have to address it. Yes, but in the long run, cooperation is the only way to solve this problem. Look at what is happening now within this region about the drivers. The government has done very well. They have identified the key entry point of this disease, the airport. That has been sorted out. But now there are other entry points. And it's important. It's impossible to solve this problem alone. As Uganda knows, you have to talk to the Kenyans, you have to talk to the Tanzanians. So I understand that there are good understanding and solutions inside. The same applies in Europe. You have to cooperate. You have to cooperate to find a solution, long-term solution, the vaccine, but you also have to cooperate because you cannot really stop the economy of a country which is made of interchanges, of people moving, of goods moving. So if we want to get back to our lives, we have to find a solution to bridge, to ferry ourselves through this crisis, and shutting the doors down to everyone is not a solution. So
in the work that Britain is already broken off, does the European Union still lend a hand and send a branch in case there is any help it needs?
Absolutely. This is what everybody is doing all over the world. The fact that the UK has left the family is like having lost a arm. I mean, this is the way I feel it. My cousins will always be there. We continue to share the values. We continue to share the concern for the world, for what the world is becoming. Look at the overall impact of this climate change. I mean, it's something, those are the kind of basic values we all share, whether we are Italians, French, Ugandans, British, Americans, or Chinese. So nothing has changed from this point of view. The approach is the same. And by the way, of course, we are now, nothing has changed after the UK has left Europe because we are still bound by the same arrangements. We will see what happens at the end of these negotiations. But nothing will change in terms of basic values, cooperations, and understanding of people for what they are. We are the same.
Well, Your Excellency, the Polish postponed their elections. I'm sure you know that. That was due to what happened on 10th May via the postal vote. Now, Uganda's Electoral Commission chairperson, that is Simon Byamukama, said that Uganda is due to vote as planned next year. That was in an interview with NTV, of course. There are other countries under the European Union umbrella that were looking forward to the elections either in 2020 or 2021. Croatia, a case in point in December for parliamentary election. What is at risk here?
I think what is important is that each country has to find its own responses to its own challenges. So if the situation in a country is still unclear, you mentioned Poland, you mentioned Croatia, and the government does not feel comfortable with the way big gathering of people could lead to a respread of the virus or lose control of the situation, then I understand why they are doing those kind of things. And I have no issue whatsoever, and I have really very little to add to a sovereign decision. The same, absolutely the same, applies to Uganda. So I follow with extreme interest the development of the situation. I really hope that in the next 10 days we will see big changes. Absolutely. In terms of lockdown, because I really look forward to move out of Kampala.
Same here. Well, let's look at the innovation. COVID-19 came through. A lot of work you've been actually having many conferences and meetings via Zoom or any other app you're using. What does this inform us as a generation when it gets to innovation, and what should we do?
Yes, let me tell you something. First of all, as an old man, I'm now 62, not that old, but still. I don't like these video conferences.
You don't like it?
I don't like them.
Why?
I don't like them because there is no...
You thrive on people.
Exactly, exactly. So I reluctantly adopted, embraced this technology. So I'm using that.
How are you holding up?
In myself, at the personal level?
Yes.
As I said, being stuck, a friend of mine a few days ago, who is actually a countryman, told me, I feel like a lion in a cage. And I said, well, I understand that. Yeah. So the way we have organized ourselves at work, We have a core team, of course. It's important because we have to keep business going.
Oh, yes.
Very few people, 4. And then we try to, to go to the office as much as we can, not every day, absolutely. I have 60 people at home doing telework, connected by, you mentioned Zoom and other technologies.
And
yes, those kind of things. And doing telework, so to speak. That is the way it is called. Only 5 of my staff are in Europe. They were allowed to go back to Europe because they had some kind of medical situation, so it would have been unwise to keep them here in case. So there are only 5, but the rest, the remaining 60 are here, working, teleworking, and we will see what kind of plans are put in place after the next 10 days when the president will decide how to move forward. Maybe we will work in shift, maybe little by little, but I really look forward to coming back to a team made of 62 people all working together with social distances, with measures, with washing hands. All this is in place, by the way, in every embassy, in every ministry, everywhere.
Well, on the dates, let's talk about the dates. That most emerging economies like Uganda, especially here in Africa, or the EU, shine a light on the way forward about such dates.
Yeah. What do you mean exactly?
The date we have, like Uganda, the dates we have with EU or any other emerging economies that fall under the category where Uganda is, what lies ahead for them from the EU perspective? Are we getting some bit of pause? Are we just getting reviews and restructure these loans ahead?
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, I mean, Europe has always been extremely open, extremely understanding. You know, we have cancelled debts several times. It's not the first time we do it. So a restructuring is something we have been discussing. In terms of granting, we were mentioning the private sector before, supporting those who have immediate need of going through this crisis financially. We are discussing with important banks in Uganda, with the Uganda Development Bank, about creating a mechanism in which we will be injecting, for instance, grants and merge these with loans by the bank in order to give an instrument to private sector to have access to a very, very, very attractive loans with a very, very low interest rate to survive. But in general, for the country, I mean, we don't provide as institutions loans. The European Investment Bank, which is our lending institution, does, and we continue to be very, very active on this. But right now, there is no more than this in terms of discussions about our development cooperation and our loans and deadlines and so on. There is nothing really concerning from this point at this stage.
Your Excellency, let's talk about the health sector.
Yep.
Ever since this pandemic broke out here in Uganda, how do you perceive the way the Minister of Health has handled, and where do we need to improve as a nation?
I have said in many occasions that the government is about delivering public goods, global public goods to people. One key one, I can see 4 key ones. Health to citizens, to people. That is a key public good. Education, another key public good. Justice and security. These are the kind of things the government does. They offer these public goods to people. Hope is another recipe, hope for the future. That is also very important, because these kind of things have to be done in a way that people will feel comfortable and will see good things coming up for them. So health, primary health, public health is a key public good. Actually, Uganda is very lucky because there is an outstanding minister who is doing an excellent job. The fact that the European Union has not been providing support to health so far, it is basically the result of a division of labor. Within the European Union, within the group, for instance, the UK has been working very, very hard and supporting very much the health sector, the Americans as well. So within the group of good, strong, solid, long-term partners of Uganda, we have done this work. We have distributed labor. We have divided responsibilities. We have taken the sectors of green economy, of good governance. We are supporting infrastructure. We are supporting energy, roads, railways. We are supporting the jailers sector. We are supporting all agriculture and so many other areas. Public health, health in general, education, is not one of those sectors the European Union itself is supporting. But we are still supporting through our member states. So lucky, excellent work done by the Ministry of Health, and I think at the end of this crisis, I mentioned earlier the programming we were about to complete. I think we have to sit again with the government and look again into our priorities, because we may have to make a little bit more effort to support. Yes, I think that is what we should be doing.
Okay. So how has the pandemic affected the infrastructure development in partner countries and those affiliated to the EU?
Well, you know, a lot of big construction contracts have been not necessarily fully put on hold or halted, but they have been delayed. And for instance, we have 3 major contracts. One is ongoing, and I had the opportunity to discuss and to talk about it for several times. It is the completion of this northern bypass going around town. Just before the crisis, we had a meeting with General Katumba Wamala. There was the chief executive of the Uganda National Roads Authority, and we were really pleased by the way the contractor was handling a very, very problematic and complicated interchange. The one going out of Kampala and Dere Cultural Center. That is a very, very good. It's going to be a
Chisasi roundabout.
It's going to be a beautiful infrastructure. We're requiring a lot of diversions, a lot of difficult works. So we had planned, we had identified all what was needed to do. So by now probably would have been finished, because we had identified a 2 months time window in order to finish up those kind of critical, important, very complicated, as I said, works. It's not going to happen within that time. There will be a little more time needed. The construction of the rehabilitation, the full rehabilitation of the Tororo-Gulu railway, we started, but it's not moving at the pace we would have wanted, obviously, because it's difficult to mobilize equipment, it's difficult to move people around.
The manpower.
The manpower up to 2 days ago, I mean, people couldn't really move. Now there is a little bit, it's easier. I mean, even materials are easier to get. Nothing has been stopped officially, but de facto it's difficult to ensure that kind of logistic which is needed to carry out major infrastructure works. The same applies to the Atiak-Laropi Road, which is also one project we are financing, and so and so and so. So I really look forward to the end of this, because we really need to work hard together to go back to the top, to the fast speed we were proceeding to before this crisis.
I understand some projects you opposed, of course, the ones that are under the EU in Uganda, because of the COVID-19 and all that. So what becomes of those former employees or volunteers who are under EU post-COVID-19? Are they going to get back to work, or are they going to still hold on pause?
You mean the Europeans who left Uganda?
Yes. Well, even the Ugandans working with the European Union.
Well, I mean, our arrangement with all our staff and the message to everybody is obviously it's difficult to keep everybody employed, but that is the effort that everybody must do. That is what definitely we do as an embassy, definitely we do as a private individuals, and definitely is what most of the European companies, perhaps even all, have been doing. So the idea is keep the activities at a minimum, but be fair with people, because they are the weakest link of all this. They are those paying the consequences the most of this crisis. So obviously everything will get back to normal. It must. And the Europeans who are left, not many of them actually, you know, that was interesting that you raised this, because I spent 2 days to go one by one to talk one by one to my staff to understand what they wanted to do when the situation was becoming very difficult. The same was done by many, the owners of many companies. The response I got from everybody was, we don't want to go back to Europe. We feel very comfortable in Uganda. The government is dealing with issues very, very well. We want to stay here. Obviously, nobody wants to stay stuck at home. They don't like that. Nobody likes that. But we are complying. We must comply. We will comply because this can contribute to find a solution to this.
Yes.
That's right.
Let's look at the lockdowns. I've seen a couple of people in the United States and other countries protesting the lockdowns.
Yes.
They're saying they're depressed, they need to walk out. What's your opinion about the lockdown? Is it the health or the economy first? Who should we save first?
I think human lives, that comes first. You know, even in Europe, the initial discussion was, you know, but do we really need to close the business? Because the damages on the economies will be huge, enormous, and they have been enormous. But then after a few weeks, governments have started seeing people die and say, wait a moment, maybe that wasn't the right decision. And then the lockdown and the suspension, the stoppage of production, it was introduced in a massive way. And that has led to the results. I mean, we are not out of this crisis yet, let's be honest about it. But the numbers have changed dramatically in the last few days. So that is needed. There is no question about it. And in the process, you lose money. You lose a lot of money. There is no question about it. The same happens in Uganda. Nobody's happy. I'm not happy to be at home. Nobody's happy to see people who have been, working very hard, earning a good salary, producing, delivering, selling, to be affected so massively. But what is the priority? That money or my life? My life. No question about it.
Let's look at, in all of these, the work of human rights, and the numbers of domestic violence seem to be spiking according to the police report and all that.
Yes.
So how do we navigate through these, the rights as well as the cases of crime?
Yeah, you mentioned a very important one. Actually, it's happening in Europe as much as anywhere else in the world, including Uganda. It is probably the psychological effect of being stuck into a situation nobody likes. Being at home, confined in a small place, tensions, a little frictions, which can be used, sorted out by, maybe you just move out of that environment for a while and then you come back with a different state of mind. But being blocked in that situation very often makes a little friction becoming a big problem. And these kind of situations have led to unacceptable behaviors. It must be condemned every time. It is the price that we pay for the lockdown, inevitably, clearly. The link is there, the data shows it. There is another aspect, and I want to tell this to those who may have who criticize me for raising the issue. And it is about the human rights during a situation which is difficult for everybody, in a confinement
we had a story
situation.
yesterday of Barry Glaser. He died in prison.
The
German.
The German. Oh yes, I read that. I mean, the man was in prison for good reasons. It happened. He had cancer. I'm sorry that he passed away. That can happen. No, I was referring to something else. I was referring to the way people have to be handled by the law enforcement agencies. It is particularly in a situation like this. It has always to be done with care. People are there suffering, so one has to be understanding. And my raising this issue has been criticized, I know. But then the question is, we are equal partners. Uganda and Europe are equal partners. We have signed up to the same convention, the same agreements. What kind of friend would I be if I wouldn't tell you the way I feel, if I think that you are derailing or deviating a little bit from the path we have jointly together decided to take? Would that be a friend, or would that be somebody who doesn't care about you?
That wouldn't be a friend, of course.
It has to be done respectfully. And we always do that, but it has to be done. That is part of our relationship and friendship. So that is something important to keep in mind.
Let's look at post-COVID-19. What's your picture like post-COVID-19? What's the new normal? What are some of the things you look at, like this is going to stay, it won't change? Possibly this is going to change a little bit, but maybe not so much.
Yeah. As we said earlier, definitely the game-changing factor will be the vaccine. That will allow us to go back to the life we had before. But pending that, I think we should keep using these kind of things, washing hands, using all those, keeping social distances, all kind of behaviors which are not natural to our cultures. It's not normal for us to stay 2 meters away from each other. Actually, we like to hug each other, to shake hands, and so on and so on. So that will not be possible until this virus is completely eradicated in a way that it will not be able to come back. So the immediate post-COVID-19 is a situation in which we'll have to reorganize the way we work, the way we cooperate, the way we do production, industrial production, for instance. Also strategically, what we do. Is it proper? Is it useful for us that the simple things that we can produce locally, these masks, is it proper that they are produced maybe only in one place in the world, which could be Antarctica, for instance?
We can that would be very far.
It doesn't really help. We can do those kind of things. Huh? So there are strategic decisions that can be made, some reorientation of our strategic decisions concerning what we produce, the way we want to go about our business, the way we want to attract also visitors, which is good. I mean, Europe is, from this point of view, is the most important place in the world in terms of tourism. Millions and millions and millions go in each and every European country. Uganda was following the same path, not yet at the level of Kenya, but quality-wise, well, yeah. I'm happy to be in Uganda.
Oh yes.
But now all that must come back in a proper way. But
phases.
Pending that, yes, pending that, we have to get organized.
Post-COVID-19, many people are looking forward to scholarships going to study, especially in Europe. Some windows in Italy have started to open up with regards to that. What do you make of these with regards to exchange programs and the likes, especially for the young generation?
Well, you know, I actually always feel very bad when I discuss this issue, because there are so many instruments in Europe available, which perhaps we are not been good enough in making them known to our friends. When I was at the university, you know, basically you were born in a place, you would study in a place, you would graduate in a place, you wouldn't move from there. But this was in the early 80s. But everything has changed after that. In Europe, we created a program which is called Erasmus. So you are at the university in Frankfurt, and then you can continue your studies in France, you can continue in Italy, in UK, and so you move, and it's very good because it exposes you, young people, to different ways of thinking, different education system. It brings friendships between people who must know well each other. We expanded this program to all over the world, which is called the Erasmus+. Many Ugandans, but not as many as I would like, are aware of this and are going to Europe, many universities in Europe, to study and to complete their graduation process by having exams and special training courses in Europe. So this is something where we have to work more, because the opportunities are there, and I have to make myself more efforts in order to make these instruments better known.
That they're better known.
Yes, but bringing people together, know each other better, and not only students, also researchers.
Oh yes.
I mean, the idea of developing a virus for this, for the vaccine, for this virus is never going to be the solution found by one individual or one particular country. It's always a dimensional ethnic group, people from America, from Europe, from China, from Africa, working together. So having a chance to move scientists, and we have a program for that, between Europe and Africa and Uganda in particular, absolutely crucial, and we will have to make, and I will have to make a bigger effort to make that known.
Well, thank you so much. That is His Excellency Attilio Paki giving us these highlights today. One last word to the viewers, Your Excellency, if you as we're winding up.
Well, the last word I would like to add perhaps is about the long relation that we have, Europe and Uganda. I mentioned it's something which is going. Which is about to be 45 years now. It is a relation which has been built initially on development cooperation. Well, it's understandable, of course. I mean, that was the need at that time, but it's no longer the case. It is a completely different relation now. This is the way I would like the Ugandans, my friends, and ourselves, the member states, and my team to see it. It is a relation between grown-up institutions, grown-up nations, the same kind of equal partners. It is not about development cooperation, it is about trade, it is about engaging towards the same fights against global challenges. It is about exchanging views and coordinating actions in the international fora. For instance, the United Nations. We should be sitting sit together and then discuss about how do you see this issue, how can we handle it together. So it is about political relations, it is about trade, it is about economic relationships as well. Relations between business to business. That is what we have been promoting. We don't talk about development cooperation with South Korea because it's a completely different partnership. And this has changed with Uganda as well. So when I development cooperation. Forget about development, we will still have it. Cooperation, relationships is a much bigger thing. That is the kind of relation we must have between equals. So if you tell me I'm doing something wrong, I shouldn't take exception, and I don't.
Yeah.
But it should be the same, the other way.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you so much. That is His Excellency Attilio Paki Piki giving us
But
insight.
then I told you to use the Pachi Fichi.
Pachi Pichi.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
This is Morning at NTV. We'll take a break and we'll be back.